Healthcare Association, Boeing, the CIA, Bubblegum Shrimp Company, and so she's been quoted in many publications, including News and World Report.
Hello, ITMI, National Tour Association, and if you happen to be a non-travel tour professional and you're joining us today, welcome. And I know that I'm going to use an overused word right now, community. I mean, I think we've heard the word community every single way, but when I say that this community of travel, tours, and professionals is one of the most inclusive groups I've ever worked for, it really, I don't have any other better way to describe it. So if you are new to this group, if you're new to joining, welcome. You cannot find a better group of more supportive, enthusiastic people across the board. So my name is Meagan Johnson. We're here to talk about the generations. I have to say that when this pandemic started, I really thought to myself, wow, you know, we've got a lot to worry about. There's a lot, people have a lot of big concerns. Will the generational topic, will the generational conversation continue? And I'm thrilled that it continues to, we continue to want to talk about the generations because even during this time, during this pandemic, we want to connect. And when I think about the younger generation, I think about my cousin Brendan. My cousin Brendan is right in between a young millennial and a Gen Zer. Something we often do, or I've noticed people do, is we call all young people millennials. Well, you know, here's a newsflash. Millennials are, you know, nearing 40. Many millennials have management positions. They're business owners. They have families. Not all young people are millennials. We have this new generation, Generation Z. So when I think about the younger generation, I think about my cousin Brendan. He's right in there between Gen Z and millennial. And Brendan recently got a tattoo. Now, one of the things I really enjoy about the younger generation is they really have made, they've taken tattoos and made them mainstream. Haven't they? I mean, because when I was a little kid, I don't know if this ever happened to any of you, but when I was a little kid here in Phoenix, Arizona, if you went somewhere and someone with a tattoo walked in, your mother pulled you close. Because back then, only two types of people had tattoos. People that had been in the military, but most importantly, people that had just gotten out of where? Prison, right? The Hooskow. But that's not the case anymore. I mean, we don't even call them tattoos. What do we call them? We call them ink, tats. My favorite phrase, though, is body art. Because that's really what tattoos are. They're like these little works of art you get to take with you wherever you go. I'll be honest, I would love to get a tattoo, but I'm terrified. People who tell you it doesn't hurt, I just don't believe you. It's a needle piercing your skin. It's gonna hurt. So I'm a big fat chicken. So I love it when other people get tattoos. And when I heard my cousin Brendan was getting a tattoo, I thought, wow, what's he gonna get? I mean, that's the really big question, isn't it? Because you can choose whatever you want. And you better like it. A lot. I thought, will he get a dragon? You know, from the show, the HBO show, Game of Thrones? How cool would that be? A dragon, a rainbow, a unicorn, the little hamburger helper hand, anything. So when I saw Brendan, right before COVID, I saw Brendan and I rushed up to him. I said, Brendan, let me see your tattoo. He rolls up his sleeve. One word he's tattooed on his arm. Can you guess what it is? Oh, I know, some of you are thinking he tattooed the word mom. Wouldn't that have been nice? That would have been a nice little tribute to the woman that brought him into the world. No, his tattoo read Brendan. He tattooed his own name on his arm. I looked at his mother, I said, He tattooed his name on his arm. She looked at me and she said, he wanted to tattoo it upside down so he could read it. Now, I would like all of you, all of us in our virtual audience, I'd like you to think of the multiple generational people that you work with, you interact with every day. And I believe our hall monitor, Amy, is going to put you into some groups. Correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Amy. But here are the 2 questions that I would like your groups to answer. When working and interacting with the older generations, and older, we could say, let's say olders are Gen Xers, baby boomers, the traditional generation. What do you find most frustrating? And what do you find most rewarding? The second question I'd like you and your groups to answer is when working with the younger generation, let's take the young millennials, the Gen Zers, what do you find frustrating and what do you find most rewarding? I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk about this and then answer the questions, and then I want to hear what you groups have to say. So I'm going to give it over to the powers that be at ITMI to put all of you in groups, and we're going to come back in just a couple minutes. Go. Are we back, Yasmin? Is everybody, am I back on? Am I back on, Yasmin? What
is your background picture there, Yasmin? Is that your house?
Hey, Yasmin, am I back on?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, terrific. All right. Yasmin has that exotic backdrop in his, when he's on Zoom. It looks like he's on vacation. All right. So I know we had a little technical, little jiggy there, but all right, we are back. I'd love to hear from your groups. Maybe you can put this in the chat box. What are some of the positive characteristics of working and interacting with the older workforce? What are some of the positive characteristics? Why don't you guys start entering a few of those answers into the chat box, and I'd love to hear what they are. And Yasmin, if they come up, can you let us know what they are? Because I am not seeing them on my chat box up here.
Sure.
Oh, wait a minute, I take that back. I saw some come up. All right, hold on. You know what, I jumped the gun. So, we have they're confident and they're assured. Thank you from John. Linda Rome, they appreciate being out and seeing things. Yep, they sure do. Let's see, they have wisdom. They do have wisdom. They're committed. Well, they could be committed. I know I want to commit my dad sometimes. They have a strong work ethic. They keep their word. Let's have one more. And they draw on their knowledge and experience, and they pay attention. Now, those are terrific. Thank you very much. And they are pretty much, when I talk to groups and I ask them, tell me the positives that describe the older workforce, this is what they say. Wisdom, experience, knowledge, they're mentors, customers like them and respect them, they have strong face-to-face communication skills, they're always on time, if not early, they're dependable, and they like to talk about the good old days. Sometimes the older generation does like to talk about it, the good old days. And you know, if they start a story out with when I was your age, you might as well just sit down, because that's going to be a really long story. On the flip side, tell me, what are some of the frustrations you have working and interacting with the older generation? What are some of the frustrations? You want to enter those in the chat box so I can see what you have to say? What are some of the frustrations you have? They're set in their ways. Oh, I hear that one a lot. So let's say, for example, you have somebody, a new tour director. She hasn't been a tour director very long, but she's working with an operator, and she says, come on over here, take a look at this. I think if we move this, change this, flip this, turn this, it'll be bigger, it'll be brighter, save us money, save us time, the customers will love it. What do you think? Now this person over here has been a tour operator for a long time. They've been operating tours before there was anything to see. They listen to what this person's saying, and what do they say? No, that's not going to work. Why won't this work? I've given it a lot of thought. Why won't this work? We tried that before. Really? We tried this before? I mean, I've been working here for 2 weeks. I don't remember trying this. When did we try this? We tried it before you were born. Right? So we hear that one, that they resist change. What's another frustration working and interacting with the older generation? Someone says they have short attention spans. Well, if it's like my dad, he just doesn't remember what you've been talking about, that's all. And they're slow. Sometimes they don't even get out of the car in the morning. Someone wrote true. Here's some of the frustrations that people have that they've told me working and interacting with the older generation. They resist change. We heard about that one. They're stuck in their ways. Sometimes they stereotype the younger generation. That's a complaint that the younger generation has told me. Skeptical, slow. They don't embrace new technology. They'll call you on the phone to tell you they're sending you an email that you should print. And then maybe you can sign it and fax it back. just put some new thermal paper in their fax machine. And then finally, the older generation likes to talk about the good old days. That's another one. All right, so what about the younger generation? What are some of the characteristics of the younger generation? What are some of the positive characteristics? Tell me, enter them into your chat box. Some positive characteristics of the younger generation. They have energy, honest. They like to have fun. They're motivated. They have fresh eyes, wow moments. They understand technology. They're good with technology. They are so good with technology, they will stand right next to you and text you. Then they look at you and say, did you get my text? Here's some of the positive attributes that people have told me about the younger generation. They're creative, they're tech savvy, they're passionate, they're entrepreneurial, they're environmentalists. I mean, they want to recycle stuff before we even use it. Fun, energetic, they challenge the status quo, they're excited, and they embrace change. And you know what? I agree with all of those. In fact, when I was in my 20s, I wish I was 50% of that list, but I wasn't. Now, on the flip side, what are some of the frustrations you have working with the younger generation? What are some of the frustrations? Tell me in the chat box. Frustrations. Short attention spans. Squirrel. Okay, they're all over the place. They're distracted. They're easily distractible. What else? Entitlement. Oh, entitlement. I hear that one a lot. They want to know when they're going to get a raise. When to get a promotion. I've been here for 2 weeks. All right, give me one more. They're not patient enough to learn something. Here's what other groups have said to me. You know what? The younger generation, they have bad attitudes. They're entitled. We heard that one. They don't want to pay their dues. We heard that one. Continually complaining. All right. The coach was late. Right. So people were distracted. They couldn't get everybody on board on time. Poor communication skills, gossip, lazy, apathetic, rude, disloyal, wants reward with no effort. But my favorite one's that last one. They want to have fun. And they're irritated if the work's not fun. Really? I don't want to go on that tour. That tour is no fun. It's boring. Now, I speak to mini groups. Used to be before COVID, I spoke to mini groups face-to-face. Now post-COVID, we're doing a lot of virtual. But every group, I ask them to participate in this exercise. Describe the older generations, describe the younger generations. And I hear a lot of the same words. But I have to tell you something about this list. This list right here, this list of negatives about the younger generation. I actually got this list out of a magazine. Out of Life magazine, 1968. Baby boomers. How many of you out there are baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964? Baby boomers, let's hear from you. Baby boomers. Let's review baby boomers. Your managers thought you had bad attitudes. You complained, gossip, lazy, rude, apathetic, wanted reward with no effort, and all you wanted to do was have fun. Now all the baby boomers are sitting there saying, well, those are character building words. That's what those are. That's what made me who I am today. How many of you are Generation X? This is my generation, born between 1965 and 1980s. Gen Xers, let's hear a shout out. Woo! Oh, Gen Xers, don't sit there so smug. In 1998, Fortune magazine called us the gold collar workers. This was not a compliment. Here's a little snippet from the article. I won't read the whole thing, but I love that last line that describes Gen Xers' attitude about work. Work is not work, it is a hobby you happen to get paid for. So, what's my point? My point is that really what we're describing is a youthful generation. And the definition of youthful that I use means new. They have a new, different set of experiences than you do. I call these experiences, in the book I co-wrote with my dad, we call these experiences generational signposts. And a generational signpost is an event or phenomena that is specific to one generation. Now, I did have somebody, I was speaking for American Bus Association right at the beginning of the year, and somebody said, well, Meagan, when you talk about generational signposts, aren't you really stereotyping or generalizing or putting people in boxes. Because I mean, especially in the tourism industry and the travel industry, we're about exploring new experiences. We're about inclusion. The last thing we want to do is build walls and exclude people. And when I talk about the generations, that's obviously not my intention. My intention is not to stereotype or put people into boxes. My intention really is to explain, well, here, this is what generational signposts explain. Generational signposts explain how events, technology, and the economy shape various groups of people. Clusters of people born during a certain time frame have experienced similar situations and can be differentiated from other generations. So for an example, baby boomers, Gen Xers. Remember when we were little kids, our school would have a fundraiser? Remember those fundraisers our school would have? Sell candy. Remember that one, selling candy? How'd you sell that candy, baby boomers and Gen Xers? Most of us door to door. Everybody. How do you sell your kids candy today? You buy it all. What's my point? My point is that many Gen Xers or baby boomers had this generational signpost of selling candy door to door. And that generational signpost gave you time management skills, money handling skills, customer service skills, even product inventory skills. Well, that generational signpost is gone. And that's true of all of us. No matter where we fall on the generational timeline, we all have generational signposts that change, evolve, and sometimes dissolve. But the conflict occurs, and there is generational conflict. The conflict occurs is because we have a set of expectations. Expectations of the tour operators, expectations of tour directors, tour guides, expectations of our visitors, even our own family members, that are in part based upon our own generational signpost. A generational signpost that has no emotional connection with someone from a different generation. Now, I was lucky enough to get to speak to several of you before coming here today, and somebody I spoke to was Marco Jan. He is with Destination America, and Marco and I were talking on the phone, and I asked Marco, well, how long have you been in the travel tourism industry? He said, over 20 years. I said, well, Marco, tell me, how has the tourism industry changed? How has it changed? And this is what he had to say to me. He says, what it means to be a travel director or tour guide today looks very different than 20, 25 years ago. Previously, we were rarely disputed authorities. We knew everything about a location. If someone on the coach asked a question, you could tell them almost anything. But he assured me, he was not that that's what I would do or we would do that, but other people would do that, he said. Now the role is different. People can readily source the same information and challenge your knowledge in the moment. Today, people want something more in-depth and experimental. Oh, sure, Jan, give me a word. Marco, give me a word I can't say. Want something more in-depth, we're going to skip that word, from their travel director. Travel is about being together, sharing, and learning. There is less focus on less focus on the transfer of information and more focus on guiding the guest on their own discovery. If you know Marco, would you please give him a shout out? Would you please tell him thank you? And really what Marco is saying, partially, you know what? Technology has changed. The tools we use to do our job have changed. But also, along with the tools we use to do our job, those change. Also, the expectations of generations change. Right before COVID, I was at the shopping mall, the big mall, and there was a 3-year-old girl standing in front of the mall directory sign. You remember the mall directory sign? It shows you an outline of the mall, a list of all the stores. There was a 3-year-old girl. She was standing in front of that mall directory sign. She was placing a finger on the mall directory sign, and she was moving it across the sign, trying to manipulate and change the images. And when the sign didn't move, she looked at her mother and said, "It's broke." Well, just like Marco's described, the tools you use to do your job have changed, therefore changing the expectation of the guest. Generations' expectations change. that 3-year-old girl has a different expectation of what the vendors in the mall are going to do to connect and collaborate with her. And that's my goal in our time together. My goal is we take a journey, we take a look at each generation, their generational signposts, and what you can do to make each encounter an encounter in the professional, tourism, travel world, or an encounter in your own personal life, a successful one. Sound good? Okay. Somebody else I was lucky enough to speak to was Emily Howard. She is a baby boomer from Michigan. Hi, Emily. She is an experienced tour director, and we were talking about COVID and the challenges of being in the tourism industry during this time. And Emily said this to me. She said, when I got into the industry in 2008, she said, everything tanked. It was tough. People were losing their homes. Travel was not a priority. So she said, my advice, because I said, what would you tell a new tour director who's just now starting their career during this time? She said, my advice is to work on yourself. True, if you're not on tour, you can't practice being on tour, but you can practice doing something different. When we come out on the other side of COVID, people are going to want something unique. People are going to want to connect more. And that's what I'd like to do, is help just look at ways that we can connect moving forward. I do have something for all of you. It is a great refresher tool. It's called a generational decoder card. If you would like the electronic version, or maybe you're one of those people that you actually like to hold something in your hand, just shoot me an email to Meagan at meaganjohnson.com. Meagan is spelled M-E-A-G-A-N. Shoot me an email. Tell me you'd like a decoder card, either the digital copy or the actual physical copy. I will happily send you one. If you would like to be entered into my book drawing, I will be giving away a couple copies of my book once we're done here today. Shoot me an email. Just say something in the subject line like I want to win a book, or put my name in the drawing, something like that. And finally, if you want to keep in touch digitally after we are finished with our program today, please sign up for my e-zine. And if you're one of those digital people you like to text the word generations to number 44222, to number 44222. And I neglected to say, if you know Emily, give her a big shout out, tell her thank you. She was so delightful to talk to, and tell her thank you for spending time with me. All right, our generational timeline. It begins with the traditional generation, sometimes called the mature generation, sometimes called the silent generation. My favorite name for this generation is one coined by Tom Brokaw, the greatest generation. Do we have anybody from the traditional generation out there? Let me know in the chat box. Do we have anybody from the traditional generation? I'm looking to see if we have anybody from the traditional generation. If you're not from the traditional generation, does anybody have people from the traditional generation in your families? Oh, wait. Yes, we do. Okay, from, I think it says George. I'm so sorry, your name went away. It was George, and also from Marlene. Marlene is here. She's someone from the traditional generation. Anybody else from the traditional generation? Yes, Valerie Hurstfield. Awesome. Welcome. All right, let's give the traditional generation a big round of applause. And those of you who are not from the traditional generation, many of us have this generation still in our families. And also, many people from this generation, as you know, are traveling with their grandkids. They're utilizing your services. But the number one complaint from this generation is we don't ask their opinion. Isn't that interesting? We have people both in our professional lives and our personal lives that have more experience than we do, have solved some of life's bigger problems, and we forget to ask their opinion. See, I think the traditional generation has spoiled us. If the traditional generation says to you, I will be there tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., what time do they show up? 7:30. The likelihood that they were at a kegger the night before is low. This is Fred Winter. He is 101 years old. He recently competed in the Michigan Senior Olympics. 101 years old. He was #1 in his age class. He was the only one in his age class. Yeah, that's true. But they asked him, they said, Mr. Winter, how is it at 101, you're out here competing? And I'll be honest with you, whenever people get asked these types of questions, what is it that makes you so strong and so tenacious? So deep down, I'm hoping that Mr. Winter says, I cocktail heavily and I eat fried foods. But Mr. Winter's response was, I do 100 push-ups a day. The man is 101 years old, he does 100 push-ups a day. I was feeling very discouraged till one of my audience members says, you should meet this guy. He recently did pass away, but at 112, he was America's oldest veteran. He still smoked cigars and drank whiskey. So that's where we go. That's excellent. And as a traditional generation, as they came home from World War II, they began to have children, which is what I think these two people are about to do. And that is where we have the baby boom. These are people born between 1946 and 1964. Baby boomers. How many of you are baby boomers out there? Where are my baby boomers? Let's see you, baby boomers. I see some hands raising. Oh, baby boomers. Esther, she's a baby boomer. Yes, baby boomers. Someone just wrote, my grandmother is 92 and she still drives. Okay, we've got another couple more baby boomers. This generation is huge. 72 million people were born. 72 million. Think about this. As baby boomers reach senior citizenship, the number of senior citizens in our country, in the United States, is going to double. That's like taking everybody that lives in California and everybody that lives in the New England states. That's how many senior citizens we're going to have. And they're still going to be driving really slow with their blinker on, but not turning or doing anything, just driving. In 1964, Time magazine named baby boomers the man of the year. They said baby boomers are going to clean up our cities, end racial discrimination, and find a cure for the common cold. Baby boomers were the first generation to ever be graded on a report card, works well and plays well with what? What's the answer, people? Works well and plays well with? Anybody know the answer to this one? Others. Yes. Thank you, Diana. Thank you. Yes. Works well and plays well with others. Why was this important? Baby boomers are the very first generation where education became an expectation. Prior to the baby boom generation, education was really, my grandfather, he's from the traditional generation. He told me that when he was in about 8th grade, his family took him out of school. Why'd they take him out of school? Put him to work. I was about 9 years old when he told me this. I just thought he was lucky. But baby boomers, education became the standard. 50% of our public education buildings today were built in the 50s just to accommodate all these baby boomers. So baby boomers had large classroom sizes, 30 kids to a class, 40 kids to a class. I recently had somebody tell me, a baby boomer, 70 kids, 70 kids in his first grade class, one teacher. And the ripple effect, the changes we see in the professional world today, is that baby boomers are known as our teamwork generation. Think about the 80s. As baby boomers began to assume management positions, that's when we really started talking about teams. Had a team meeting, elected a team leader, had a group hug, sang kumbaya. That's baby boomer stuff. Inside every baby boomer, there's a kid wondering what the heck happened. This guy's just wondering what the heck happened to my pants. Hopefully you haven't seen this dude on your coach. All right, there is a stereotype we make about baby boomers. I am just as guilty of this. I give my dad grief about this one. It's really not entirely accurate. Does anybody, what do we assume about baby boomers that's not true? Let me know in the chat box. Anybody got some thoughts? What do we assume about baby boomers that's not really true? They're entitled, okay. Yeah, I would say some baby boomers are entitled. What else? What else? What do we assume about baby boomers that's not true? Any other guesses or thoughts? They think they know better than you? Yeah, hippies? Yeah, that's my dad. They were all hippies. We do make that assumption when there's actually quite a conservative majority during the 60s. Not into technology. Thank you, Amy. Amy just chatted not into technology. Yes, that's exactly it. We assume baby boomers do not use technology. But here we all are on a Zoom meeting. I would say that probably every baby boomer with us right now uses technology. In fact, I love to point out to my younger audiences, baby boomers were actually the very first iPhone users. Yeah, baby boomers had iPhones before anybody. they're blowing their phones up. So baby boomers do use technology. I have a little video. This is T-Mobile. He was the CEO of T-Mobile, John Ledger. He is a baby boomer. You might recognize him because when he was a CEO of T-Mobile, he felt that scarlet color, that was their color, and nobody else should be allowed to use it. But I have a little video of him talking about baby boomers and technology. Before we play this video, I will give you all a heads up. He swears in it. He uses profanity in this video. I do bleep it out. But when I talked to the powers that be at ITMI, I said, am I okay playing this video? You know, there's some swear words in it. And, you know, after they all picked themselves off the floor laughing, they're like, please, these are travel professionals. They have heard every word in the book. So we're going to play this video for you. And then it's about baby boomers and technology. Here we go.
Hi, I'm back, and I'm here today to fix something that drives me completely crazy, and I bet I'm not alone. I'm talking about the way the wireless industry treats boomers and beyond. I'm sure you've seen it, the belittling, the condescending offers, and not to mention the way they jack up prices on them. It's absolute and degrading at the highest level. This generation deserves a little respect. I mean, they invented the whole wireless industry to begin with. Boomers are the most loyal, long-term wireless customers in the world. Why are they being patronized by the carriers? Seriously, it feels a little something like this.
Did you see Madeline's post?
Yeah. Tired of squinting and struggling with that smart aleck phone when all you want is big buttons?
No.
We love our phones.
Now get everything you could possibly want in a phone made just for you. Big buttons, phone calls. Wow! Confused by all these newfangled words like data, social media, and streaming.
Not really.
We're always streaming and using data.
Now you don't have to worry about all that pesky data.
What about Facebook?
You're too old to even know what that is.
I don't think you know us very well.
This is total.
We are now.
All right, we are back. I was lucky enough to interview Denise Swain. Denise is a baby boomer. She's in Alabama. She's a newer tour director, and she just got her certification 18 months ago. Congratulations, Denise. And like many of you, being a tour guide was kind of a next stage career for her. She was going to retire from her previous career, and this was going to be the next stage in her life. And she said to me, she said, when she got back from ITMI, she said, instead of waiting for a tour operator to call her, she started doing her own local tours, local walking tours. She curated the tours herself so that when she did finally get the call, she was ready to go in February. She was prepared. So she did her first tour in February, and then we all know what happened in March. But she said this to me, and I think this is interesting because she's talking about technology. She said, following the shutdown, I discovered a podcast that was produced for the tour industry. From the first time I listened, I felt I had met my new best friend. I could digest and apply everything. I apply everything I learned from the podcast. She said, for example, I did not know there were 160 booking platforms. I didn't know that either, really, 160, oh my gosh. She said, I had no idea there were companies that could handle the bookings on my website. I learned how you could curate a private tour for 5 to 6 people, design it and price it any way you wanted. I love this last line. 2020 is the year of enlightenment for me. So baby boomers do use technology, but here's how they use it. They use it to make their job or life easier. I think sometimes some of the younger generation, and we get really, I'm making this, but often we kind of get interested just because it's the new technology, it's got all the bells and whistles. Often the older generation want to know, how is this technology going to make my job or life easier? Okay, enough of me talking. It is now time for our first generational quiz question. So let's get ready. Here is the quiz question. Choose your favorite boy band. Choose your favorite boy band. Is your favorite boy band the Beatles? Is your favorite boy band NSYNC? Is your favorite boy band Backstreet Boys? Or is your favorite boy band One Direction? And I believe the powers at ITMI are going to bring that up for you so all of you can answer this question. Let's find out who or what band is the favorite boy band with our audience today. I see someone, Corey wrote the Beatles. Someone, John Bentz wrote the Beatles. Beach Boys. Okay, Julie, Beach Boys wasn't an option. Okay, now you're just taking your own quiz. Okay. Beatles and One Direction. Oh, listen, Stacy's gonna do play both ends against the middle. Wow, thanks, Stacy. Beatles. Oh, and it is resounding. Beatles at 67%, NSYNC at 10%, Backstreet Boys at 14%, and One Direction 9%. I don't even know who's One Direction. This is gonna. When I saw One Direction, I'm like, well, what direction are we going? I don't know. What? That's it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Applause to everybody for participating in our first generational quiz question. My grandmother, she comes from the traditional generation. And I came to pick her up to go out to dinner one evening, and she was having her evening cocktail. She came to see me speak right before we had the shutdown. I was so excited she was there. She sat right up front. And when it was all over, I rushed up to her and I said, well, Grandma, what'd you think? And she said, well, I heard that story you told about me. I said, what about it? She said, you made me sound like a lush in front of all those people. So I promised my grandmother I would tell every audience she only has one drink every half hour. So when I show up to pick up my grandmother, I'm in a hurry. I feel it's my agenda that's important. So I said to her, let's go. And she said, let me finish my drink. And I said to my grandmother, who comes from the traditional generation, my grandmother experienced the Great Depression, I said to her, just pour that drink out. She said, pour it out. She said, oh, Meg, I will not waste my drink. I said, don't worry, Grandma. We'll get you another drink at the restaurant. Let's go. She said, the restaurant? She said, oh, Meg, those are too expensive. I said, you know what, Grandma? It doesn't matter how much your drink cost. I will buy you your drink. Just get in the car. Now, if you'd said to anybody in my peer group, get into the car quickly, and if you do, I will buy you your drink when we arrive, they'd be in the car. Not my grandma. My grandma just stood there. She stood there and she finished her drink. Didn't say one word to me while she did it. Now, I love my grandmother. I think she's amazing. She has accomplished things in situations I can't even imagine. But can you imagine? I still got annoyed. It still bothered me she wouldn't throw the drink away. And it bothered me because my expectation of her behavior was based upon my generational signpost. So now you have 72 million baby boomers growing up in a world that had been created by the traditional generation. And so what baby boomers began to do during the late 60s and the early 70s is baby boomers really began to challenge and question the rules. And during the late 60s and the early 70s, a lot of baby boomers had pharmaceutical assistants. Some of you had more assistants than others. This is actually a picture of my two favorite baby boomers, my mom and dad. That's my dad sitting in the center, wearing what could be best described as a tablecloth. And that's my mom in the corner. I have to tell you, I lucked out when it came to parents. I got two of the best people for my parents. I mean, you have no control over who you get. I hit the jackpot. But what I love the most about this photo is my entire adolescence, my mother told me she never smoked. And then I found this photo. I said to her, Mom, what's that? And she doesn't even blink an eye. This is what she says to me. I was just holding that for a friend. And she expected me to believe it. And I did. But baby boomers were successful by challenging the rules. By challenging the rules, we began to see the desegregation of schools. By challenging the rules, the job market began to open up for women. In the 50s, classified ads were separated by gender. There were help wanted ads for men, and there were help wanted ads for women. You could list the same job, tour operator, same job in both columns with two different salaries. But baby boomers were successful by challenging the rules, and as the job market began to open up for women, it coincided with the Vietnam War, and the birth rate began to fall. This is where we have Generation X. People born between 1965 and 1980. Gen Xers, do I have any Gen Xers out there? Let me hear from you, Gen Xers. Where are the Gen Xers? Woo, Gen Xers, let me see you. Oh, yay, yes, Sarah Covey, the Christina Phillips, yay, Gen Xers. John Bentz, oh, Gen Xers, Stephanie Gillen, Gen Xers. I've got something to tell you. We're the smallest. We're barely there. We represent 13% of the entire population. 1 in 6 is a Gen Xer. We were lucky to get a name, Gen Xers. In fact, Gen Xers, if this were the Brady Bunch, Gen Xers, we would be Jan. We're the forgotten middle child. Nobody wants to go to prom with us. We're stuck between the cute millennial sister, Cindy, and the more popular sister, help me out with her name, Marsha. And Generation X were the first generation to ever have, in large numbers, both parents working outside the home. So we came home from school, mom wasn't there, dad wasn't there, nobody was there. What do we call this? Anybody remember? What do we call it in the chat box? What do we call this when your parents weren't at home, you came home to live by yourself? Latchkey, yes, Yasmin, latchkey, yep, latchkey kids, that's what we called it. I was a latchkey kid. And I'm going to tell you the truth about being a latchkey kid. And this is really the unvarnished truth about being a latchkey kid. It was awesome. This was amazing. Who thought it up? I want to thank them. 3 o'clock, school ended. You're free to go. You didn't have to hurry home. There was nobody waiting for you. Now, remember, this is before the electronic tether. We didn't even have beepers. We'll explain what that is later. We wandered on home when we felt like it. We let ourselves right in the front door. We could let ourselves in the front door because we had our own key. Where we keep our key, Gen Xers? A little string around our neck. We'd walk into the house, and there sitting on the kitchen counter was a list of tasks that had been left by management. And here are the rules. It's a beautiful system. The task must be completed on time. On time just means for management, that's mom and dad, they're due home at 6 o'clock. If they're due home at 6 o'clock, when do we start doing those tasks, people? Yeah, about 5:45. But it's up to us to decide. We decide when to start, when to stop. If I want to take a break, I take a break. So Generation X has become our most independent generation. And they join you, and their attitude is, hey, tell me what you want done, give me the tools and training to do it, and then just leave me alone. Okay, here's a little impromptu generational quiz. What movie is this from, people? What movie is this from? Let me hear from you. What movie? Gen Xers know this movie. Come on, Gen Xers. What movie is this picture from? Fast Times. Thank you, Stacy. Yes, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. This was Brad. Remember Brad's girlfriend broke up with him in the beginning of the movie? Who would break up with Brad? Come on. Not me. I would have never broken up with Brad back in high school. I've got my husband sitting in the back of the studio right now, but I would not have broken up with Brad back in high school. So Generation X is our most independent generation. And Generation X is the first generation to come home to TV. TV became a generational signpost for Generation X. Oh, I know. Whenever I start talking about TV, baby boomers get very defiant. Baby boomers tell me, well, we had TV. Yeah, sure you did, baby boomers. Baby boomers, how many out there remember the first color TV in your neighborhood? Yeah. If you didn't have a color TV, what kind of TV did you have? Black and white. When I was a little kid, this is no lie, my dad was telling me about a black and white TV. And I remember thinking, black and white? How do you get the color out? And why would you do such a thing? But Generation X, not only did we have more than 2 TVs per American household, in 1968, a television producer asked herself this point of no return generational question. And that question was, what if we took learning for children and we made learning taste more like ice cream than spinach? And the answer to that is a show that is still on the air today called Sesame Street. And Sesame Street revolutionized children's programming. And Sesame Street took learning and made learning fun. I was lucky enough to interview Dawn. Dawn is a Gen Xer. In fact, when Dawn and I were chatting on the phone, Dawn and I, our birthdays are a month apart. I'm older by 1 month. That means, Dawn, that when I turned 21, you would have asked me to buy you a drink because I was the older one. She attended ITMI in 2019. In fact, when she and I spoke about a week ago, it was her 1-year graduation from ITMI. Listen to this, though. Dawn did not get to do one single day of student tours because she was supposed to start her student tours in March of 2020. So what did Dawn do? Okay, so she's a Gen Xer. What did Dawn do? This is what Dawn told me. Dawn said, I really wanted to be a tour guide, and I did not want to wait. I needed to make it happen. I went from being a tour guide to falling into the idea of starting my own company, Dawn the Tour Guide. I decided to cater to the military community. Being part of a military family, I had moved around a lot. I know what it's like to land in a new place and not know where anything is located. If I had had someone who had held my hand when I moved to a new place, I know I would have been up and running ever sooner. My goal is, via walking tours in the metro, to show people that even during COVID, there is so much to do in Washington, D.C. And she goes, and when those people have friends and family visit, they will know what stop to get off for the Smithsonian, or where the best bathrooms are located. She said to me, she goes, you know what, I lived in Germany for several years. I learned there were people who lived on a military installation and never left the base to explore what is around them. I think that is a tragedy. She said, I want to empower people. If you know Dawn, give her a shout out, tell her thank you. And she sent me a couple of photos. I wanted to show this photo just because she's wearing a mask, she's doing the responsible thing. But talk about, look at the promoter that Dawn is. Even her shoulder strap has the name of her company, her Instagram handle there, right on their handle. So self-marketer Dawn, give her a big round of applause. Thank you, Dawn. It was so fabulous talking to you. Okay, time for the next generational quiz. Everybody ready? Ready for their generational quiz? Here we go. Who played the second Darren in the hit 1960s TV show Bewitched? Was it Dick York? Or was it Larry Hagman? Was it Dick Sargent? Or was it Tom Cruise? I'm going to give you, I think the powers above are going to give you these selections. Who played the second Darren in the hit 1960s TV show Bewitched? Millennials and Gen Zers are like, what are they even talking about? Waiting on the answers. Okay, I see 20% said Dick York, 31% said Larry Hagman, 48% said Dick Sargent, and 1% said Tom Cruise. And the answer is Dick Sargent. Dick Sargent. Dick York started out as the Darren, as some of you might remember, but what the producers did not know when they hired Dick York is that he had actually had an injury on set and hurt his back and had an addiction to pain pills. And that's why in many episodes you'll see Dick York, they have positioned him so that he's either leaning against something or maybe laying down because he had extreme back pain. So Larry Hagman was on I Dream of Jeannie. That's where Larry Hagman was. This takes us to the Millennials. These are people born between 1981 and 1996. Where are the Millennials? Let me hear from the Millennials. Who's a Millennial out there? Between 1981 and 1996, where are the Millennials? Yay, Arson? Courtney Tyler, hey, Courtney, good to see you. Where are the other Millennials? Evan Branco, Evan and I talked on the phone too. I've got some quote from you, Evan. Haley, Halsey, H-A-L-S-E-Y. I apologize if I just butchered your name, I apologize. Millennials, here's what's interesting. We've got Gen Xers, we've got Millennials, 2 generations, we're side by side. We have the same set of parents, baby boomers. Baby boomers are parents to both Gen Xers and Millennials. Less than 10% of Millennials come from a non-baby boomer parent. The majority of Millennials have baby boomers for parents. And there's some of you baby boomers out there, you had yourself a Gen X kid, you thought, well, that's dunk. I'm gonna have myself a Millennial now. But you're a different type of parent to the Millennial than you were to Gen Xer. We did not use the phrase latchkey kid to describe Millennials. We said things like stay-at-home dad, soccer mom, Soccer mom, playtime, family time. It's the quality of time that matters. Millennials have had an evolved parent, and the ripple effect is that many millennials have remained close to their parents. In fact, according to a Gallup poll, 90% of millennials report being close to their parents. 90%. Compare that to 1974, 40% of baby boomers said they'd be better off without their parents. Okay, you remember in the beginning of my presentation, I gave you that total number of baby boomers, 72 million. Are you ready for the total number of millennials? 80 million. 80 million. They've surpassed the baby boomers. They are currently 40% of the workforce. In 10 years, they'll be 75% of the global workforce. 59% of millennials have never been married. 36% live in multi-adult households. 80% want to work for a company that cares about their environmental impact. And according to the top 100 brands that millennials like, REI is one of the top millennial brands. Now, when I read this did not surprise me. REI is an outdoor store. They're known for their environmental platform. But I'll tell you something that was on the list that did surprise me was Wegmans grocery store. Now, I mentioned I'm in Arizona. We don't have Wegmans over here in the Southwest, but those of you on the East Coast, you're familiar with Wegmans. Wegmans is known for treating their parents right. They're also known, or treating their employees right. I don't know, I was thinking about my dad there for a second. Wegmans is known for treating their employees right. They have a do-good social agenda, and they recently released an app to help assist blind shoppers. The millennials truly are the first generation that really put their money where their mouth is, that they are going to not only work for companies, but give their business to companies that represent their ethical framework. Millennials are also the first generation to tear down the corporate ladder and replace it with a corporate lattice. Think about a lattice. A lattice is flat. A lattice has multiple connections. No one connection is more important than the other, but you need all the connections to create a strong structure. And when we say things to millennials like, you need to pay your dues to climb the corporate ladder, that's a disconnect, because it's not about paying your dues to climb the ladder, it's about expanding your connections to build your lattice. It is also why millennials name collaboration as the top 2 characteristics they look for when looking for a place to work. Now, a company that does this really well with building this collaborative work environment is Zappos Com. Some of you may be familiar with this. They're an online shoe store. I wish I'd never discovered that site. But Zappos' attitude is they want their employees to have as many connections with as many people as possible. And one way they do this is, for example, this is before COVID. This is the office space at Zappos. That's the CEO's desk, Tony. He's one of the founding members of Zappos. That's his desk right out there with everybody else's desk. The attitude is that, hey, you got an idea, you've got something that improves Zappos customer service, the product, you can talk to anybody. Now, I have had people say, you can see right there, whoops, that's my head, thank you. You can see some bottles, you see them bottles right there, and then you see one a little bit farther to the middle. Somebody asked me, they said, what are those? It's an open bar. They are all over the place at Zappos. That is why when you call over there, everybody is in such a good mood, okay? Some of you say, but Meagan, that's Zappos, they sell shoes. Okay, we are a tourism industry. Yes, we are, we have creativity, but we do have some restrictions and rules we have to follow. I interviewed a gentleman named Adam Browers. He is the HR director at Bethany Retirement Living. Talk about a highly restricted industry, assisted living. Assisted living is one of the most highly restricted industries in our country, in the United States, next to nuclear. He got rid of annual reviews. He said, because the young people that work for me today do not care about what happened a year ago. He said they care about, and I thought this was so eloquent the way he described it, they care about the relationship they have with their employer today. He said, and I feel it is my job to help cultivate a conversation about that relationship. And he uses what's called the stay interview. The first stay interview occurs within the first 60 days of employment, followed by whenever a manager or supervisor feels a stay interview is appropriate. You feel like someone's becoming disillusioned, burned out, you can perform a stay interview. Here's some of the questions on the stay interview. I won't read them all. I love that second question though. when was the last time you thought about leaving your job, and what was the cause of you thinking about leaving? He said, we want to know that beforehand. He said, we recently had an employee, he said she just didn't seem as engaged as she had once been. We performed a stay interview. We discovered that she had a transportation issue, and by changing her hours, we helped her solve that transportation issue. USA Today had a great article. They interviewed college professors, and in this study, college professors were dumbfounded because their students that were about to graduate college were turning in papers filled with instant message language. We all know what instant message language is. And in the same study, when they interviewed the students were just as confused because they weren't even aware they were using that instant message language. And I thought to myself, wow, even the way we write to each other has changed. So for example, if somebody from the traditional generation, remember this is my grandma, the traditional generation, if they're going to write a letter to Tom Smith, how are they going to start that letter? Dear Mr. Smith. How would the baby boomer start that letter to Tom Smith? Dear Tom. How's the Gen Xer going to start that letter to Tom Smith? Tom. How will the Millennials start that letter to Tom Smith? Yo, hey, bro, brah. They'll just start writing? They don't even write a letter. When was the last time you got a letter from a millennial? But they will send you a what? A text. Text says, I'm too hot for you. Now they don't even send you a text of letters and numbers. They send you a text full of what? Emojis. Get it? I'm too hot for you. That's a little you there at the end. Do you know how hard it is to find the right emoji? Emoji hunting is very, very hard. What's my point? My point is that we have people entering the tourism and travel industry, young people that are excited, and you know they're excited. They're excited to be there. They're excited to see the world, make connections, challenge old perceptions. And sometimes we discount their ideas. We discount their challenge to change because what they're suggesting stems from a different skill set than we had at that age. Hey, just because it worked before doesn't mean it's going to work this time. So just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be the way you do it today. So let's say you have a young person who wants to move it, change it, flip it, turn it, do something bigger, do something brighter. Rather than saying no, ask yourself, whatever they want to do, whatever they want to challenge, does it negatively impact cost, quality, safety, or service? Does it negatively impact cost, quality, safety, or service? If the answer is no, that's your little red flag to say, all right, let's try something new. Worst case scenario, no change. Best case scenario, you reinvent the travel industry, the tourism industry. You find something that say, hey, you know what, this makes our job easier, something to give our customers really uniquely different. It's important we do this because millennials not only aspire to be leaders, but if we want them to take over the reins, if we want them to feel as passionate about this industry as you do, we have to allow them to assume responsibility. And that means that we have to let go of sometimes the way we've always done things. All right. I was in the car with my father. A song came on the radio called Love the One You're With. Have you heard this song? And I don't even want to talk about that just yet because now I realize I almost forgot to do something. I forgot to tell you that I talked to Evan. Gosh, oh my gosh, I almost jumped over Evan. Evan and I were on the phone. I have to tell you, talk about somebody with an optimistic spirit. Evan is just fabulous. Evan was just about to become a tour guide, and COVID hit. And so Evan has picked up some side gigs. He's waiting it out. But this is what he had to say. He said, I was a motor coach driver for 5 years. Being a driver was not my plan A, my plan B, or my plan C. He said, I was a chemistry major in college. The highest paying job on campus, however, was a campus bus driver. I drove 40 hours a week and scheduled my classes around driving. Eventually, I worked my way into charters. I learned I loved the tour. I enjoyed everything from learning about new places, interacting with guests, and seeing people's faces light up when you showed them something new. He said to me, I kept trying to talk over the tour director, who politely told me, you are the driver, and that is what I need you to do. Evan said, I would prefer that you include the fact that I was receptive to the critiques of my tour directors, and I did eventually clam up. If you know Evan, would you give him a big shout out? And this is what I love about Evan. Evan said that on a tour, when he's a motor coach driver, he always makes a point to try to compliment people, the customers, every day. He said he had a woman on his tour who had fabulous socks, and he said he complimented her several times, and I guess that she was like that so much, she actually gave him a pair of socks. And I don't know if you can tell, these are little, what are those things you put out in your yard? Gnomes. They're little socks with gnomes, and so she gave him a pair of socks, little pair of socks with gnomes. If you know Evan, give him a big shout out. He was just a terrific person to talk to, had such a good time. All right, now back to what I was saying. I was in the car with my father. Song came on the radio called Love the One You're With. It's a good song. And when it came on the radio, I said, Dad, turn it up. I love this song. He said, really? My dad said, what do you like about it? I said, I like the message it sends. He said, well, what do you think the message is? I said, well, the line in the song, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. I said, what that means is if the one you love, if the one that you're with dumps you, you got to love the one you're with. And the one you're with is yourself. You have to love yourself first. I told my dad it is clearly a song about self-empowerment. He said, that's not what the song means. And after he told me what the song meant, I said, that's disgusting. Because it doesn't matter how old you are, there's certain things you never want to hear your mom or dad say. I said, here's the difference, Dad. You grew up in the 60s with that cornball slogan, free love. Gen Xers, we grew up in the 80s. There's no such thing as a free lunch, much less free love. But now, with Generation Z, you have a generation for the first time that knows more about something we need to know. We'll bring a brand new computer home. We'll call our kids over. We'll point to the computer. We'll say to our kids, okay, how do you install the parental controls? They have the answers. Generation Z, these are people born between 1997 and 2012. Do we have any Gen Zers out there? Let me hear from the Gen Zers. Gen Zers, where are you? I know there's got to be some Gen Zers out there. You're probably still sleeping in. Gen Zers. Okay, Gen Zers. There's 74 million of you. They account for 40% of all consumers, 25% of the US population. Get this, they watch 68 videos a day. They currently outnumber baby boomer voters. They are value-driven. They identify with causes and support organizations that embrace them. What are the two biggest causes? I bet you guessed it. Coronavirus and Black Lives Matter, the two biggest causes that Gen Z relate to. I interviewed Kira Butler. Kira Butler is a millennial. She is in California, and she was talking about being on tour. This is what Kira said. I'm always delighted to discover, no matter what age, everyone wants to learn something on tour. It does matter, however, how you present a learning opportunity. If you say to the group, we're going to learn something today, the younger generation will tune you out. She said, so I play a game of Jeopardy on the coach, one side of the coach versus the other. People can choose their sides. I tell the guests, you don't even need to be on your family's team. It's fun to watch each team take pride in what they know and they know about the attractions we have visited. People are amazed at how much they have learned. Do you know Kira Butler? Give her a shout out. Tell her thank you. She was wonderful to talk to. She was delightful. But this is Generation Z is also the generation that personalizes everything. Think about that. Technology has enabled this younger generation to personalize their cell phone rings, the clothes they wear, the cars they drive. I interviewed a gentleman who owns Land Sharks, a clothing store in Saugatuck, Michigan. I hope I said that right, Michigan people. And he created what's called the Honey Badger Award. Some of you may be familiar with the Honey Badger video on YouTube. If you go onto YouTube and find this video, it does have profanity in it. But if you would like the bleeped out version, let me know. I'll get it for you. But to receive the Honey Badger Award, he says you have to go above and beyond in your normal daily duties. But the award is that you get to go out to eat, choose a restaurant of your choice, and he says the store, we'll pay for it. We'll pay for your dinner. He said, and if you're over 21, we pay for your drinks too. He said, but we do ask that you ask someone else from the store to go with you. And he says that we pay for their meal. And during the course of the meal, the two of you have to come up with at least one idea to help improve land sharks. And you present that idea at our monthly meeting. And I said, wow. I said, do you get a lot of good ideas? He said, well, half the time they have been drinking. He said, but most importantly, they bring up things that are important to them that I hadn't thought of. He said, so for example, internet radio. He said, we listen to internet radio in the store. Someone said, well, once an hour, allow someone else to choose the type of music being played in the store. He said, that's easy. But also by doing this, it allows them to personalize their work environment. Personalize their work environment. All right. Do we have time for one more generational quiz? I think we do. One more generational quiz. What is ghosting? All right, what is ghosting? Is ghosting wearing a ghost costume at Halloween? Is ghosting a 1990s movie starring Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore? Is ghosting the appearance of a ghost or secondary image on a TV? Or is ghosting cutting off all communication with a friend or person you are dating? Let's give you a few minutes to answer there, a few seconds to answer this one. What is ghosting? Okay, answers are coming up. 1% said the appearance of a ghost or secondary image on TV, and 99% said cutting off all communication with a friend or person you're dating. Here's the answer. Both of them. So both of them are right. It is the appearance of a ghost or secondary image on a TV, and it is also cutting off all communication with a person or friend you are dating. I just want to say for the record, that's rude. Those of you that didn't, if you do D, that's rude. All right, Danny and I were chatting on the phone. I thought I liked to travel. Danny takes the cake. Danny said this to me. He said, I believe the majority of the political problems and strife we are currently experiencing would be solved if people traveled out of the United States. I agree with you 100%, Danny. Through travel and visiting museums and meeting people, you can educate yourself. It can teach us that all people all over the world may be different, but most of us want the same thing. People want to have a family, they want love, and they want the freedom to live their lives. Travel is a solution. I find it rewarding knowing I am part of the answer. And he said, post-COVID, I believe people will begin to travel again. Do you know Danny? Give him a big shout out. He has a wonderful picture of himself in Peru online. If you get a look at that, it's just fabulous. We have now come to the end of the program. Here is all my contact info if you want to reach me. I am going to open it up for questions. I talked a lot. I admitted I talked a lot this time. If you have a question or comment and we don't have time to talk about it, contact me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever that is. Or you can just old-fashioned call me. You can just pick up the phone and give me a call. You can even do that. But do we have any questions, Yasmin, that you want to we wanted to address?
Check with Amy. Here's my first question. And or multi-generational. Here's the two questions. First is, I'm a baby boomer. The teachers that I work with on Xers, what do I need to know about my students? Gen Z kids. What do I do?
Oh, that's a great question. So how do I connect with the Gen Z kids? That is a great question. And I have to tell you, my own experience with my granddaughter, who is a Gen Z, is I just admit that I don't know. I just don't know. That's what I admit. So if there's something, it's something that I let them sort of take the lead. So for example, a tour guide I was actually speaking to said, when I've got a lot of young people in my group, I think she says young people kind of find it like, hey, I've got my phone, I can look up information, I can challenge what you know. She said, so I usually open it up to them. I say, so what do you know about this, I'm in Arizona, the saguaro cactus. What can you tell me about the saguaro cactus? And she says, I kind of let them take the lead and let them be the expert. Often when we're in that younger stage of life, we like being the expert. She said, so if I try to show them my knowledge up front, which often, she said, with my baby boomer visitors, my baby boomers visitors want to know, okay, what makes you the expert? She says the younger people want to be the expert, and I let them kind of take the reins on that one, and then say, oh, okay, yes. So did you know the saguaro cactus? The arms each take 40 years for each arm of a saguaro cactus to grow. So she says I kind of take it from there, and it is 40 years, right? I'm asking my husband because we did this tour together. Yes. Okay. Another question, Amy?
So Sarah is asking, is there a really good way? What is this newest generation? Like 2015?
So you're asking, what is the generation following Generation Z? That's the advanced class. You have to buy another ticket for that one.
I had heard someone referring them to, instead of baby boomers, baby zoomers.
Yes, I've heard that phrase too, baby zoomers. Yes.
So how are we connecting from on tour?
Well, actually, and I'm gonna keep relying on some of my people that I spoke to before being here. One of the guides I spoke to says, I try to do it through story. So she says, before we, kind of before the tour gets started, she said, I really ask people to say, tell me your favorite travel story. And so she goes through the group and talks to gets people talking about what's your favorite travel story, and really tries to connect people through that. She said, because really, she said, being on tour is about sharing a story. It's about, what's the story of this place, and making it connect with everybody that's coming, because everybody's bringing their own stories. So how can I get everyone's stories connected? And so she really opens up her groups. And the impression I get is normally when they're like in transit someplace, she really opens it up with getting people to talk about their favorite travel or tour experience, and connecting those stories together. Because I think that's what the travel industry really has going for it generationally that other industries don't, is that people come together and have this experience and create these wonderful stories that they're interwoven. You don't have, that's very different than in other industries. It's such a unique attribute to the travel industry, travel and tourism industry.
My last is just around, it's basically your guess. So this newest generation, multi-generation tours, they're going to be our guests. Is there something that you think?
Well, COVID is going to be the big one. So think about it. You've got young Gen Zers who only have existed in times of turmoil. Your young Gen Zers. We have, school shootings. We have the political unrest that we have here in the United States right now. And now we have COVID. And so those of us on the older side of the generational scale, that's a very small piece of our life. But these younger people, that's almost their entire life. So I think you're going to have definitely a more cautious generation. They're going to, because really think about this, their entire existence, it's not been a peaceful time. There's been a lot of strife. So I think we're going to have a younger generation on the flip side, though, that really is looking for deeper meaning, even at the age of 9. Looking for a deeper meaning, and that travel is going to be a big part of that. So when you're on those tours, like looking at the Washington Monument, that they're really looking for kind of a little more depth there. And I think that's going to be something's going to be different with this younger generation versus like when I was 9. When I was 9 and I was at the Washington Monument, I just wanted to get one of those big giant pretzels. That's all I wanted.
Well, looks like that was our last. Are there any more questions?
Nope, that was my last. Meagan, thank you. That was
Hey, thank you, Amy. Thanks you, Joan. Thanks, Yasmin. You guys, I know you were like, you did all the heavy lifting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are so grateful for the opportunity to have you do this work. And I wanted to thank all the volunteers and participants with Meagan, Marco, Emily, John, Meagan, thank you to Kathy.
Oh, thank you.
A great experience. I think that to summarize everything we've learned today, it's really about getting some additional perspective so that we can really
Thank you.
guys, that